And welcome back to another episode of Trackside Northeast. I'm your host, Joe Cortez. It was a wild weekend all across the Northeast for racing and on top for the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series because we're in playoffs and it's the best time of the year to be watching these racers get out on the track, whether it's at the lower level or the higher level. None of it matters. It is all, everyone's in, they're all in, and they're trying to go for it. So going over the Bristol race this weekend for the Cup Series, I mean, we finally had our first cuts. We had a few guys who didn't make it, and there were a few who showed up, but it was one of those races when you look at Bristol Speedway. I mean, if you look at the Speedway and you understand how racing works is, a lot of the tires and everything, all the debris, it gets up the track. But Bristol is so small that when you actually look at this, they only really have 2 lanes to race with. So it makes for a fast, impactful race that you get a chance to look at. But, AJ Allmendinger, he starts on the pole, but Gibbs takes the lead around lap 24, and then Blaney takes it back, and it was back and forth. Joey Logano continues to see some struggling throughout the year and throughout the playoffs, frankly, but he made it back up towards the end of the race. But we had a lot of issues with the tires, as expected. When you put a machine with this caliber and this kind of horsepower on a small track like this, you're going to have tire issues. But we saw numerous tire issues. I mean, there were tires going up the track. There were cars on fire. It was... You know exactly what it was. It's words that I can't say on the show right now, but it was one of those times where you finally got a chance to see some good aggressive racing on a short track that's, not knocking New Hampshire so much, but New Hampshire, it gets a little lull during it sometimes. But we had 500 laps, a lot of changes, a lot of green flag pit stops early on. Then the cautions started making their way in and everything. But, Blaney took stage 1. We saw a big battle between Bowman, Blaney, and Gibbs. That was the one to watch towards stage 2 at the end, but Gibbs ended up taking that one. And then early on, Briscoe jumps out in front of Gibbs. So we had a lot of action-packed changes, a lot of lead changes, but you could tell there was a few cars that they had that extra edge. There was a lot of spin-outs with some of these drivers, but that's what happens in the playoffs. You're trying to get every position, every point possible. And frankly speaking, if you're down by that cut line, you really are trying to get the win over anything else. I mean, personally speaking, because a win gets you to the next round. But we saw Denny Hamlin. He had a little bit of trouble during Saturday's race. But let's get a little bit of, let's hear some reaction from some of the drivers. We have Chase Elliott, Josh Berry, and then, of course, the winner. Got to give credit where credit's due. Christopher Bell showed up on Saturday, and he got the win at Bristol Motor Speedway. But take a listen to some of these drivers after the race.
Or wasn't expecting me to come back to the bottom, or what the reasoning was, but nonetheless, yeah, it happened and it's done.
The car was really good. That was going to fall right in our wheelhouse, I feel like, to have a really good night.
I was fortunate enough to have the front row just slide up out of the way, and I was able to pile my way through there. And yeah, those last couple laps, they weren't pretty. That thing, I don't know. So it ended up being, I thought it ended up being a great race. I hope the fans thought that. Definitely something different. And yeah, I didn't think my first Bristol win was going to be at a
huge shot from behind.
And, it's one of those things with so we looked at, you had 2 drivers who, unfortunately, they wrecked. They were out. Josh Berry was in a hot box. I think it was, I want to say, it was around lap 70 around there, but his whole car went up in smoke. He had to get out of there. I mean, it was one of those tough situations for him. But, Chase Elliott got into that run-in with John Hunter Nemechek and Hamlin. Not really sure exactly what happened there. It seems like Chase was trying to grab the bottom, and, it depends on who's there and who's going to give it to you, but it couldn't tell if either John Hunter Nemechek or Hamlin, whoever bumped, somebody hit somebody, and his night was over. That was pretty much it for him. But, Ty Gibbs, unfortunately, he was up and in there the entire time at the front of the race. He was doing really well for a while, but unfortunately, he did end up falling back, and, hey, you give it to Christopher Bell. You got to give it to him. So let's take a look real quick on who is left over here. We had 4 drivers that were unfortunately cut. That was Bowman, Dillon, SVG, and Barry. But this is your cut line going into the next elimination race. We have Austin Cindric, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, and Tyler Reddick. So we will see how these guys make it out. But, Hamlin's up there at the top. You got William Byron in second, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Brian Blaney, Chase Briscoe, Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace. So a lot to look forward to in these next couple races we're going to be coming through. But today's show, we're going to hit on a couple different things. We'll talk about the Cup Series in this segment. Next segment, we'll switch over to the Xfinity Series with Eric Allmendinger. It wasn't Eric Allmendinger. My fault about that. It was Amarillo. That's what Almarillo. That's what it was. Eric Almarillo. He won Saturday, which was kind of different because you didn't see Connor Zilic in the winner's circle for the first time in a while. But, there's a lot of guys who came into this weekend's race in Bristol. Everyone talks about it. You hear the reaction from some of these drivers in the post race, and they talk about how they really want to win at Bristol. It's a unique track. It's a huge atmosphere. I mean, it's some place that you don't often get out to go see, like, oh, they're racing over at Bristol Speedway. And, it's a pretty cool setup on how they switch everything over. But, that cut line is now we're down to the next race. I mean, Cindric, Logano, Chastain, Reddick, each of them have had pretty good years. I mean, you saw Logano early on. He was having a good time. He's kind of slowed up a little bit, but he had a good finish towards the end of that race. And Ross, I mean, I thought Ross was going to have some more momentum coming into this week. I mean, he had been racing really well, but unfortunately, you see how guys come in. It's tires, it's cars on fire, and that is just playoff racing, and you just have to deal with the punches and get everything moving. But I also want to make a note for WPRI and Channel 12 here. We are going to be having live coverage of some of the races leading up. I mean, there's no races Thursday coming in, but we'll have live coverage with Kayla Fish Thursday and Friday. She's going to be able to get up to New Hampshire Motor Speedway where they'll be heading this weekend, but it's going to be a good race. It's going to be another playoff race, and Kayla Fish will have coverage with that. And we've also had some opportunities. We got a chance to talk to Alex Bowman last week prior to Bristol. We'll hear some of that sound later on in the show. And I have an interview with Brad Keselowski Wednesday night. So it's all going to work out. And the playoffs in the local series ramping up. Thompson Speedway is finishing up with their final midweek show. You got Seekonk. They're going to be getting down to their final 4 contenders. And don't forget the reunion over at Westboro, or not at Westboro Speedway. We'll get into the details, but it's coming up in October. They have a big reunion, maybe their final one. But we're going to come back after the break, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Xfinity Series, and we'll hear more about from Alex Bowman heading into the race. But hey, we have a lot to look forward to the next couple of weeks of racing. This is the best time of year. It starts getting a little chilly outside. You wake up in the morning, you get a hot cup of coffee. I know we're in New England and everyone likes iced coffee, but grab that cup of coffee, get going, get ready. You've got football on the weekends. You've got racing. I mean, it's the best time of year if you do like the cold. But we'll be back in less than 2 minutes. We'll have more reaction from the Xfinity side of things, and we'll go over some of the local racing to look forward to this upcoming week.
Tires, I thought that was better for our car, and it was. It was certainly the right call. So glad to finally win at this racetrack. This has been a racetrack that I've had circled on my list for a long time to want to win at. You never know when your last win will be. You just, nobody ever knows. And so to have, to have this opportunity to celebrate with my family.
That is Eric Allman. I keep saying Allgaier or Allmendinger. Almarillo. He came in and finally got a win, so congratulations to him at Xfinity. And, he said it right there. It's one of those racetracks that everyone wants to win at. I mean, it's a unique one. It's different, but, what a race. I mean, he was holding off Sheldon Creed, and, it's one of those things where we watch the Xfinity race, and frankly speaking, it's been the Connor Zilic series this entire year. So we'll get a quick look at the standings coming in right now. Zilic is standing up at the top. He's got plus 85 points, but then you got Justin Allgaier, Carson Vapel, Harrison Burton, Brandon Jones, Sheldon Creed, Taylor Gray. But here's the cutoff. Nicholas Sanchez, Jesse Love, Austin Hill, and Sammy Smith. So they'll be looking to see the elimination. Unfortunately, we don't have an Xfinity race this weekend. They're off this weekend. They'll be heading over to Kansas Speedway September 27th. That's a 4 p.m. start, but the CW will have that covered. But you look at the Xfinity Series, you look at the Cup Series, we are in full playoff mode, and there's a lot of questions when it comes to the speedways, the ideas of what you're going to go in with the strategy. I mean, last week we just saw at Bristol, and you look at it, I mean, it was all tire issues. It was all things that a lot of the drivers out there, they really couldn't control. I mean, you can control what you can, but back to the beginning of the show when I was talking, you only have 2 sections to really work with. Because if you get caught up on top, how many times did we see somebody float up to the top? Hamlin early on in the race, or later on Bowman ended up flying up to the top, and you just lose so much traction, so much space. And there's only so many pit stops you can make because, you go through the entire process, and it's one of those things that when you're working with these different drivers and you're working with the end of the year, every point matters, but at the end of the day, if you get the win, you're good to go. So you have to be going for the win. And on the short tracks, I love to see a lot of action. I love to see a lot of guys in there. But, towards the end of that race in the Cup Series, too, you had a lot of guys up there that, frankly speaking, hadn't been up there throughout the year. So it's interesting to see how these guys move and who's actually allowing the playoff drivers to go by, because obviously, you're not in the race. You're not trying to allow guys by, but everyone wants to make sure that they get in there and they make sure that they get any point they can get. But I mean, at the end of it, it's, it's win or go home. And that's what it comes down to. And even these guys who aren't racing for the playoffs right now, you still get a win. That sets you up for money for the end of the year. Any losses or damages you've had, or it sets you up for the following year or the following race to build off your program and build off your race car. So we'll have to see what exactly happens. But, switching over to the race next week, I mean, there's going to be a lot of different questions coming in. I mean, who's going to survive? Who's going to get to the next one? Because this is when it really starts narrowing down to that one mistake that you can make as a driver will ruin your entire season because, playoffs, win or go home. That's what ends up happening. But next week over for the Cup Series, I mean, they're going to be having the USA Today 301. So that is September 21st, and that is at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. 12 News will have live coverage for you Thursday and Friday. We're also going to be having a little bit of a pit crew coverage and pit area coverage on the weekends, but it won't be as the big stuff will be coming in Thursday and Friday. We've got a crew coming up there, and this is a great partnership we've had. We've had a lot of opportunities to talk to drivers and get their, perspectives on the race going in. I mean, we just had a chance to talk with Alex Bowman last week, and a lot of what he said is, you would expect the strategies and the thought process to change going to the playoffs. But, going off in the interview, and we'll hear a little more about that a little later, but he really said that, like, every week it's the same thing. I mean, maybe you key in on a couple other things, but it's a difficult process as a driver when you get in. You don't want to change stuff that's been working for you throughout the entire year. You want to make sure that what's been working for you, how it goes, where it goes. And unfortunately, I mean, it was great that we got a chance to interview Alex Bowman last week. Fortunately, he didn't make the cut because he just had, I was rooting for him too because he was having a good day. He was rolling through, but he just could not make it through. But those drivers that were cut, I mean, it was Alex Bowman. He ended up finished 8th in Bristol, but he was 10 points short of advancing. And those 10 points, you always see the ticker on the side, and it keeps moving and changing. But he really needed the win to move on. And he had great success with there early in the year in Bristol, and he's had great success there in the past. But Austin Dillon, he had tire issues early in the race. That forced him to pit under green. And we all know that, if you're pitting under green, unless, the field's constantly moving, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because at the end of the day, you pit under green, a short track, you have to make up ground or hopefully continue the race. And that's when the cautions come out, and it's tough. But Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG, he was, it was disappointing to see him in the playoffs. I mean, granted, yeah, he won. I got it. But I just felt like, if you're only going to win on those road tracks and those road courses, there should be some sort of outlier because, he reminds me, and I know it's great to see, I always mention Juan Pablo Montoya and how he used to, but it's just in the playoffs, I'd like to see some of those guys who maybe miss the cut that do better on the short tracks or race better on the super speedways and the speedways and what we're going to end up seeing. But Josh Berry, another one, he got eliminated. He had that fire underneath. That caused him to pit early. He had to get pulled from his car. I felt terrible for him. At one point, he pulls in. It seems like they were trying to get the car out with the extinguisher, but, all of a sudden you're looking, and it's a whole hot box. The guy's basically, suffocating in the car, but he was able to get out, and unfortunately, they're moving on to... They're going to have to start, looking at next year or looking into the next races. But, they're out of the playoffs right now. So we'll see exactly where it's going to go next week and what's going to happen. But New Hampshire Motor Speedway, a great time for New England racers to get up and enjoy some good Northeast racing. It's not a super speedway by any means, and it's not as action-packed as most of those speedways we see around the country. But it is here in New England. It holds deeply to, a lot of people who race around here. New Hampshire's a great spot to get up to. They got the Manhattan there and the White Mountains, and it's just a beautiful time to get up there. So if anyone's going up, we'd love anyone who wants to send in pictures or videos, send them over into our Report It. Just go on just type in on Google, WPRI Report It. A nice little link pops up. You can send in any pictures or videos you have from the race and maybe get featured on our newscast or our social media pages, but we'll have that coverage Thursday and Friday and throughout the weekend here on Channel 12. But we'll come back in the next 2 minutes and we'll hear a little more from Alex Bowman and understand kind of the ins and outs on preparation in the playoffs and what teams do throughout the year and how they get ready for those races and what changes as opposed to what doesn't really change. And, unfortunately he is out, but it was great to be able to talk to him. And we have an interview with Brad Keselowski coming up tonight. Kayla will be using a lot of that in her coverage Thursday, Friday. But, Keselowski, he had another great week too. So we have a lot more to talk about on the other side. We'll be back in less than 2 minutes here on Trackside Northeast. Back here again at Trackside Northeast. I'm your host, Joe Cortez. All right, let's get right over to Alex Bowman and the interview. We got a chance to talk to him right before the Bristol race last week. And Kayla Fish she's going to be our NASCAR beat reporter this weekend, Thursday, Friday coming up. But we've had a great connection with them so far. We've been able to grab a couple interviews and be able to talk to some of these drivers. That gives us access, which is a wonderful thing because we love to hear from them. And we like to come with a little different outside perspective and not always ask the simplicity questions that, they get hammered with all the time, but it is definitely ramping up with the coverage nowadays with the playoffs right now. So let's take a listen to some of that interview that we got prior to the Bristol race with Alex Bowman.
When you're thinking about getting ready for a playoff race versus regular season, or is it kind of like your routine doesn't really change that much?
Yeah, it honestly doesn't change that much. You might try to eat a little better or make sure you're not skipping a workout here or there or whatever, but honestly, you're pretty switched on all year. You have to be at this point to be successful in the Cup Series. You kind of have to be all in all the time. So, try to ramp up the little things as much as you can, but with the situation that we were in, trying to make the playoffs and kind of being right there on the edge, in the point steal for the last couple months, we've been all in and kind of checking every box for a while now. So not much has changed. Definitely more media and more busy with stuff like this, but on the preparation side of things, kind of business as usual. We're pretty week by week, but Bristol is a place that we've been really fast at. We've been on the pole for the last 2 races there. We're running second there in the spring. We had a mechanical failure, so definitely looking forward to getting back there. I think that's a place that probably every driver wants to win at a lot. It's a special place. The atmosphere there is kind of unlike anything else. So that's one that I've got circled for sure and have kind of had circled since the spring. And beyond that, kind of every week, we just need to be really good.
There were some of the questions that came in. So, it's preparation. You think that playoff baseball, playoff football in any sport, that maybe you change some things up or, you look to change or make little tweaks and stuff like that. But it seems like they just want to keep the same rhythm going into the playoffs and things that kind of, got them there. But, unfortunately, Alex Bowman wasn't able to make the cut. But, hey, great season. He had a really good year. And, there was a lot of drivers out there that you seemed to have a really good year, but they're just coming up short, whether it was making it to the playoffs or making it to the first cut line we had. But that is it for Alex Bowman right now. We actually have an interview Wednesday today for Brad Keselowski. We'll be talking to him heading into New Hampshire, and he just had a great race finishing up at Bristol. So it'll be nice to get his in and out experience and talk to him a little bit about, his time in racing. I mean, I'm not saying it's coming to an end, but he's getting up to there in the age when people start making those decisions. But who knows? We could have another Mark Martin on our hands who just, will race in that car until somebody pulls him out of it. So let's get over to some of the local side of racing things. We mentioned it earlier, but Thompson Speedway, they have their final midweek race this week, their midweek show. It's Wednesday. It'll be the Fall Showdown headline. They got the Outlaw Open Modifieds, Track Championship, late models, but they'll have 7 divisions, and it's all gearing up before they hit the 63rd Sunoco World Series. That is going to be on the weekend of October 10th, 11th, and 12th. As for Seekonk Speedway, it's racing up right now. It's got the playoffs. They are coming down to their playoff series right now. They got their final 4 championship contenders. They'll be set after Fast Friday and NASCAR Saturday this weekend. And, their Fast Friday will begin at 7 p.m. Their races on Saturday begin at 6 p.m. Not too much of a difference over there change-wise because every weekend they're around the same time and everything. But also, do not forget that Seekonk, they do have their Pumpkin Smash Thrill Show. It's the last one of the season. And if you ever get a chance to go online and take a look at some of the videos and pictures from the past, it is awesome. And if you like smashing pumpkins, I'm not talking about the band, I'm talking about actually seeing cars smashing pumpkins and have a good time, then you're going to want to get over to that Pumpkin Smash Thrill Show. That is actually going to be happening over October 11th. So we are teasing a little bit ahead, but there's a lot of good things going on. Also in October, coming up the 1st, Westboro Speedway Reunion. There'll be Sunday, October 1st. That is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It is at Julio's Plaza on Route 9 in Westboro, Mass. So the event will be rain or shine, but they're going to have a lot of people in there. There'll be Ron Bouchard's Racing Museum. They're going to be bringing in a version of it, like a mobile version. So they'll have a lot of cool things there. There's going to be exclusive merchandise, and Al Frazier, former track announcer, Dick Williams, the promoter, as well as Pete Falcone. They're all going to be there. They've been around that track for decades. So great time to get out, great time to talk to some people and meet a lot of these older drivers. And, you only get so many chances to meet your heroes in life. And I know people say, don't meet your heroes or the people you look up to. But, I always push that to the side. I'm like, a lot of these people, especially the ones who I've gotten a chance to talk to, a lot of the racers around here locally, especially, they're great people in and out. And they really are. They comes from a great community. Everyone's there to have fun, to race, to be competitive. And that's what we love about racing. That's what we love about the sport. We love about everything in the world. We love to compete. A competition brings out the best in a lot of people. It can bring out the worst, but a lot of the times it brings out the best. So we have a lot of good things happening here on WPRI and 12 Plus. Got some more interviews set up the next couple weeks. We're trying to get out to some of the museums as well to go take a look and sit down with some of the older drivers, owners, racers, and hear some of their stories and get some of the history of Northeast. So a lot of moving parts in the show. If you have any questions, comments, or concern, that is my email right there, jcortez@WPRI.com. If you ever want to reach out to me, that's the best way to get to me, real simple. And I just hope that you have a wonderful time. We're getting into those colder fall months. Spooky season's coming around the corner. Racing's a good time. And, I'm sure a lot of those drivers are pretty happy where it gets a little steamy in that car once in a while in the summer. So you get those cooler temps. Track rides a little differently. You got the tires you can maybe save a little bit, but a lot of good things heading up in these playoffs. So we'll be back here next Wednesday for more here on Trackside Northeast. I'm Joe Cortez, your host. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, send me an email. And I can't wait to see everyone here back here again next week. We'll talk more about some playoff racing, both on the local and the national level. And I'm not going to tease yet, but